Look at little Ika, you're so cute.
And it's a beast!
Hello internet.
And today we'll be testing all of Hyacine's team and all of Endgame. Let's start by saying this. Hyacine has an infinite amount of teams given that she's just a healer. You can use her with anyone, and at the bare minimum, she'll heal your team and dumpster truck some damage. Well, obviously I'm not gonna show you how Hyacine's gonna work with Win Dan Hang.
Alright, everybody's here from the Create Experience server.
But in any case, here's a test subject. At a whopping 207 speed, you'd think that that's really hard to achieve, but just looking at her relics here, I have an average speed roll of 4 speed per relic piece. That is not that hard to achieve. In fact, that's easy. The reason why she's still this fast is because of a high 110 base speed, plus the Lightcone that just gets you an insane 18% speed, combined with a new set which gives you speed, along with a Memo Sprite player set that also gives you speed. The new set here allows Memo Sprite characters to give team-wide speed and crit damage buff as well, so expect her to be built similarly on your account on this new set.
And that's our cutie patootie, built with high speed, high HP, and energy regen row. Now it's time to make her experience physical pain in all of Endgame.
To start, let's take a look at how she's played in her best team,
which is also the best team of the version in my opinion.
Hyacinth is extremely easy where she just has to use her skill to start. This will heal your team and summon a Memo Sprite. Then she'll instantly gain enough energy to do her ultimate. Use her ultimate to heal your team and gain these 3 charges. As long as you have this, you get a 30% HP buff for your whole team, making Castorice even more cracked down. The charges will decrease as you take your turns, and if you have these charges, Lil Ika will perform its AoE attack right after Hyacinth finishes her action. That also means Lil Ika does not take a turn traditionally on the action order. Rather, it just exists and mitigate your damage by healing your team, or it will attack right after Hyacinth finishes her action with these charges online. And the hit actually hurts quite a lot. The main reason being the Lightcone that consumes 1% of your whole team's HP whenever Hyacinth does any attack, and it will do 250% of that as damage. Not to mention the Lightcone increases damage taken by enemies, so it does make this Lightcone more focused on increasing Hyacinth's damage output while providing some form of damage support for your team. Once you do all of that, Lil Ika is on field, healing your team minorly whenever anyone loses HP. This is big considering the consistent healing converts into Castorice's charge very efficiently. Every time anyone loses HP, be it even from Castorice's own skill, you're gonna heal a little bit, and all of it can convert into charge for Castorice's ultimate. This allows her ult to be used more often compared to any other healers in this slot. And there you have it. From there, it's all about using her skill to regenerate energy and heal, getting her ultimate ideally before you take the 3 turns and run out of these charges. As long as you're in this state, Lil Ika will attack the enemies based on the amount of healing recorded. And even when you don't heal too much, the Lightcone pushes that damage output up, and you'll notice Hyacinth being able to do very respectable damage. Her healing is easily top tier. I don't think I got near to even half HP at all with any of my runs. And finally, she does have debuff cleansing on her skill and ultimate, so no worries on her debuffs either. She's the perfect modern day healer with insane healing, ways to handle debuffs, and even ways to get you good damage. Now that you understand how she plays, let's move on to the full showcase. Her best team, which is basically what's being shown on screen. This team performs incredibly well. We start by setting up with all of the buffs and just getting their dragon to explode as well. Once we have all the Memo Sprites up, we can hit Hyacinth's ultimate. And watch that HP. It gets to 11k now in Castorice. This is thanks to the max HP boost from Hyacinth, which also makes Castorice just do more damage since she scales off of that. Lil Ika managed to get 1 hit off here, and it's not too crazy considering the lack of healing recorded. After that though, it's generally just a normal Castorice team gameplay. We want to heal as much as you can every turn with Hyacinth, and you can do this because this team is honestly pretty cheap in terms of skill points, so healing more with Hyacinth won't be too much of an issue. You just gotta take a turn with her, use that skill away, and you gain more charges for Castorice. Lil Ika's healing are all converted to Castorice's charges whenever anyone has their HP reduced, since you also heal a little bit based on Lil Ika's talent. Combine that with the 30% more max HP, you get more damage from Castorice, more ult charges, and all of that. Like, it is just too perfect. Hyacinth's damage gets crazy after you rack up some healing, especially against multiple enemies. Like, check this ridiculous damage out from Lil Ika. It's literally a blade ultimate, dude. Now 50% of the healing will be reduced after Lil Ika attacks, so you can't really infinitely stack this effect, but hey, it's still consistent damage as you play through the entire battle. And yep, as time go by, we just gotta rinse and repeat, getting more heals from Lil Ika and Hyacinth in order to charge up Castorice, getting more damage output out with more max HP. It just syncs perfectly, and the team ended up with a 1 cycle clear, missing the 0 cycle by 2% on the boss. This is legitimately the easiest team I've tried in a while. Now, when you take a mental note, the question you probably have is, how much better is Castorice when you have a Hyacinth compared to if you don't? Well, I tested exactly that, and I'm happy to tell you, the difference is quite noticeable. The same team of Gallagher is able to deal 1.6 million damage at most through Castorice in this stage, while Hyacin helped Castorice reach 1.9 million in this MOC run. Gallagher's run ended up being 3 cycles, and it definitely could have been a 2, though it was quite close. The main difference here is actually Hyacin's damage output, where you're able to dish out so much damage with her consistently, something Gallagher wasn't able to do. Not to mention you also charge up Castorice a lot easier with Hyacin just automatically healing whenever anyone reduces their HP. In the case of Gallagher, you have to make sure Besotted is on the enemies, and that might not be too reliable when the boss is spawning new mobs every now and then. Combine little Ika killing the mobs along with Triby's follow damage as well. Clearing a boss like True Sting where it gains vulnerability every time a mob dies is definitely easy. So do expect a better performance if you pull Hyacin from Castorice. Though yeah, the Gallagher team can still perform very good. And with that said, let's move on to our next team. You know, Castorice is just perfect synergy with Hyacin, but what about Mydei? Now Mydei has a HP scale and DPS. You would think he would be incredibly good with Hyacin, but surprisingly, this team was almost not too different. The main reason being Mydei himself already increases his own max HP, causing diminishing returns when Hyacin also adds even more max HP on him. It still does help him, just not that much, right? The good part about this is just the fact that there's a net 0 chance for Mydei to die. Obviously, he did not even have to activate his revive at all. Hyacin's healing is very strong for this setup, especially on her skill and ultimate as well, enough to keep everybody healthy. And I mean, Mydei was never in a position to worry about survival anyway. He has too much sustain even on his own. The gameplay of this team is dang near identical with or without Hyacin, with Hyacin being able to make Mydei do slightly more damage for sure for Lightcone increasing damage taken, and the extra max HP still does help a bit. But unlike Castorice though, Mydei actually has to lose HP to gain his charges, and Hyacin doesn't really help that much in that regard. While she does have a Lightcone that consumes 1% of all allies' HP often, it only helps Mydei a tiny bit in terms of functionality since he wants to have way more HP being reduced. Hyacin is able to aid Castorice a lot better since Castorice also converts the healing into her charges, which Mydei doesn't quite do. This is why in the end we have a 3 cycle clear with Mydei. Not bad at all for someone that's designed to be more of an unkillable being than a nuclear bomb. Does this mean Hyacin is not that good with Mydei? Absolutely not. She is still the best in slot, but I wouldn't make this the reason you would go for Hyacin. It's still the best healer for Mydei though. Now, if we were to take him out for the other HP scaler that we have known for quite a while, which is Blade, this is where it gets quite interesting. You see, Hyacin's Lightcone is able to take away 1% of HP from the whole team anytime she does her basic skill or ultimate, basically anything that she does, right? This 1% HP consumption works for Blade's talent, and he gains a charge for any HP consumption that occurred on himself. This includes Hyacin's Lightcone effect. This allows Blade to rack up his follow attack way quicker, where every time Hyacin activated a Lightcone, it's 1 extra charge. But unfortunately, considering his immense lack of damage compared to all the recent DPS, his performance is still lackluster, already taking 2 cycles for the first wave, likely way more for the second. However though, I won't take this as a conclusion on Blade yet, since for 1, you would need Hyacin's Lightcone for this to work, and for 2, Blade may gain a buff soon that might change everything completely. But for now though, our Suicidal King will probably still not be used too much. The interaction with Hyacin's Lightcone is certainly interesting, and it does bump up his usability by quite a bit. Do expect about 5 or 6 cycle clear against this specific boss if you're still using a Blade. With that team out the way, let's check out if Hyacin makes a difference for teams without HP scalers. We'll start with the more recent teams where we have a high chance of utilizing something like this Aglaea team. Naturally, I could test Hyacin out with actually anyone, like even Sampo. She would still just heal the team anyway, but come on, no one uses Sampo, so yeah, the video will cover most of the popular options that you may own. I'll also mention right now that Hyacin will not make much difference for teams that are already completed, like the Super Break Firefly team. You do not take off Lingsha, the break healer, out for no reason, right? But coming back to this team that should make some sense with the Aglaea team, you would notice a potential energy issue if you usually put Huohuo in this slot, evidently because Hyacin no longer regenerates energy for Aglaea, something that you rely Huohuo to do. If you have Aglaea at E1 instead of going for a Lightcone though, obviously energy would not be too much of an issue. In any case, this team performed pretty much the same, with some cases where you would be a bit too close to leave Aglaea's ultimate state, but she still stayed in her ultimate form the whole game. I still prefer to have a Huohuo just to make it 100% certain Aglaea has enough energy at all times, but Hyacin being here instead means a steady flow of AoE damage and more than enough healing with even max HP increase to help survive. Compared to Huohuo, Hyacin's damage is winning in a lap landslide. But functionally, Hyacinth doesn't really help Aglaea at all with a lack of energy regen. Her Lightcone though does slightly help with the increased damage taken, so for people chasing the highest damage on this healer, Hyacinth's Lightcone seems to be quite the solid choice. In the end, we managed a 3-cycle clear. It was for a stage without lightning weakness, so this is quite impressive. Moving along with the next version 3 damage dealer. We have the coming rerun, the Herta. This team is surprisingly great where, although Hyacinth's whole HP based mechanic doesn't aid the Herta, the consistent instance of Lil Ika attacking is able to help the Herta rack up a bunch of energy. This is similar to how you would use Ling Shot in this setup, where she would attack a lot herself with her summonable to gain energy for the Herta. Except now, Hyacinth herself can still come up with solid damage, something Ling Shot may not be able to do. This does seem to be the new meta for support characters these days, where they themselves can pack a solid punch, much like a Trippy. However, the difference is still not too crazy that I suggest for you to pull Hyacinth just for the Herta, but for people chasing the highest possible damage output, Hyacinth is the more damaging option compared to the other sustains. In the end, the team pulled up with a 2-cycle clear. It is the perfect Herta team with Naxa after all. Very impressive. If we move away from the broken version 3 characters though, we get to check out our good old Acheron, which is still quite usable these days, but not like the demon she once was, obviously. I'm still using Trippy and Hyacinth in this case only because I'm hoping to kill off the smaller bugs, mainly with these 2 supports. That should hopefully be able to rack up the vulnerability debuff on the boss. And yeah, replacing Trippy with Sparkle or another debuffer should still end up with a similar result anyway. Now, this team doesn't make perfect sense, and it's mostly functioning off of the sheer amount of numbers Trippy and Hyacinth can bring, which is generally helping everybody. Just know that again, having Trippy out, swapping Pella in should net you very similar results anyway. Trippy for buffs, Hyacinth's damage, and her Lightcone increasing damage taken makes for a functional Acheron team here. The survivability in particular is pretty good. We would not be dying with a near 5k health on Acheron. We have constant healing whenever we get hit. And the fact that you're so fast on Hyacinth, easily above 200 speed, you are constantly being able to heal yourself a lot with skills and ultimates. And to add on to that, the offensive capability of the team is still very good. And we managed a 3-cycle clear still. Acheron is still very solid even till this day, dude. However, the same question comes a begging. Would you pull Hyacinth just for this though? I would say not really. And that was all of the performance in MOC. Overall, the highest value Hyacinth brings will be for Castorice. Mydei, the Herta, and Aglaea all function well still, but that means A, you don't need her, and B, you wouldn't mind having her too for all of these characters. Moving on, let's take a look at Pure Fiction now. And this is where your jaw might drop. Now, since Hyacinth's performance is really not too different in a lot of the alternative teams, I'll just be showing what makes sense, which, well, would be your best team, being the Castorice team. Before, Castorice was already able to pull off 40k points easily in Pure Fiction, and now, with Hyacinth dumping over 500,000 damage as a healer, yeah, things just got even better. Nothing much to say about this really. Hyacinth's damage output, which works based on the amount of heals, which also hits everyone, works very well in this mode. There are some ways where Trippy and Hyacinth just both cleared it out immediately, and in tandem, fully charged up Castorice to just one-shot the next wave, and the whole same thing repeatedly happens until we get the easiest 40k points clear ever. As I mentioned though, take Hyacinth in, say, Aglaea's team. She isn't really going to turn Aglaea to be way better suddenly, but she helps the team with her own damage still. It won't suddenly gain you 10k extra points, and it more works in a way where you gain slightly more points, especially if you can get a wave to be finished off with little Ika. The effect is much more visible with Castorice's team though, which is why I'll just be showing that, with the rest being more of just the same team, but the healer does some damage now. And I'll mention again, you can also use her in like a Himiko Herta team, but of course, Hyacinth would not be aiding you break the enemy specifically on that team. But hey, perhaps against wind weak enemies, you could still do that. That team can still work very well, just as well as using Ling Shot instead in that slot. The takeaway here, she's still very solid outside of being in a Castorice team. With that said, we can move on to the final endgame, which is Apocalyptic Shadow. It will be a similar case as well, so I won't be showing the same exact combinations of the teams that I already did. The best team though is so good that we're able to clear this in an insane 3,813 point record. That is really good considering I'm not even going for some crazy out of the box speed clear. This is just me playing normally, and again, same old story of Hyacinth's damage output along with boosting Castorice's ult usage and damage in general. It really just clicks perfectly. As I already showed before, using a good old Gallagher still means you're winning. But Hyacinth brings the damage output up a solid notch compared to any other healer in this team. For the rest of the team though, less so, where Mydei still relies on this kid and enemies' damage to get himself more charges. Blade simply isn't outputting enough damage to compete with version 3 characters, and the difference is even more negligible for non-HP based teams. This goes to show Hyacinth is simply a good healer by default, but ups the ante especially in terms of total damage output for a Castorice team, where the constant healing and max HP increase along with her own damage does matter quite a lot. Again, does that mean she's useless anywhere else? No. She's still the best healer for any HP based scaler, and just a solid healer for any non-HP based teams. The biggest value for Hyacinth is to be in a Castorice team. She is still solid for any other team, with some outstanding ones being Mydei, Blade, and the Herta teams. They're all my stats as well, and for the conclusion, Hyacinth's performance is very good for Castorice teams, so just take the slot off your luocha or gallagher that you've been using before. Just more consistent healing, providing more consistent HP change, max HP increase, more damage on their own, and all of that, you know the drill. The big point of interest though is, why would you need Hyacinth if your current Castorice team is already working fine? Evidently, the big difference is the damage ceiling, where Hyacinth unlocks a higher damage potential for a Castorice team and slightly higher potential for any HP based damage dealer currently. Based on all of that, I personally don't feel too pressured to get her, but I do have to point out, if they are really a strong HP change character in the future, basically like a second Castorice, which I kind of still doubt they would add another one, you may find that Hyacinth would be very valuable then. However, if you want to talk about the future at all, we have to collab on the horizon. We ain't got resources for that, dude. But yeah, only considering the current moment, I put Hyacinth to complete the Castorice team, and if I consider the future at all, I'm saving everything for the collab and Phainon, since my Castorice team should be able to handle things fine for now. And that will be all. Check out this big video too, it's pretty fire. I propose to you if you do it.